Hey guys, welcome to a new month, which means a monthly wrap-up of all the books I read in November. I feel like this month was really good. I got a lot of thick, chunky books off my physical TBR shelf, so that's exciting. If you didn't watch my TBR picking, my boyfriend actually picked it for November, and I did read some of the things he picked out and I didn't read other things he picked out, but we'll get into that once we start this video. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe. I am trying to post more. It is just so much work on top of like the 3 jobs I have. So I'm trying my best. I'm hoping for December to be a really good YouTube month, but let's get into the books and talk about my thoughts, my feelings on everything I read. So the first book I read in the month of November was none other than House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas. This was the first Crescent City book. I kind of talked in that video about the reason I was putting this off because the 3rd book doesn't come out until January 30th. So I didn't want to read this in August and then forget, don't have those kind of feelings towards it. And so I was putting it off. Well, he picked it and I read it. I did it. It was a thick book, but it went by fast. I rated this 5 stars. Honestly, it feels like forever ago. I read this the first week of November. I think right after that video, I picked this up actually, but it was really good. It gave me all the feelings. It's hard getting into a new fantasy book because you're learning all the characters, you're learning the world. And so the first few 100 pages are always slow, and that's how I felt in this book. I feel like, the first 200 pages, I was kind of like, really, like is this necessary? There's so much information. The book is already so long. But once things started happening, I kind of understood why those 200 pages were there. It kind of gave us the background. It kind of did some foreshadowing, everything like that. So even though it is a big book, I definitely recommend reading it. Once I got past those 200 pages, I am not kidding, I could not put it down. I flew through it, finished it, loved it. 5 out of 5 stars. Going into the next book, I read House of Sky and Breath. This was the second Crescent City book. I always mix up the names, but again, I'm pretty sure they're almost exactly the same amount of pages. Loved this. I really didn't know if I was gonna rate it super high because you never know. It's a second book in a series and I had to rate it 5 stars. The ending just blew my mind. I could not believe I actually posted on my book Instagram. You should go look at my Instagram, follow it. I try to post as much as I can for more kind of live updates of like what I'm reading at the moment instead of doing videos like this where you're seeing after the fact. This book, I have never, well, I might have during like, the series, but I was speechless. I'm still speechless, obviously. I was so speechless. I came downstairs and I was like, Brian, I finished my book. And he's like, okay. And I was like, I don't even know. I'm like, I cannot believe what just happened. I cannot even believe what just happened. I went back and I read the epilogue again. Guys. 5 out of 5 stars. If this was a silent review, this would be the comical one. I'm done talking about it. Just go read it. The next book was also on my November TBR, also a very chunky book, Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. I was already about 120 pages into this book. I started it, I think at the beginning of the year, but then I, got new books, kind of put it off. And so it says that I read it from January to November, but I edited that and I kind of put it in from when I read it this time, like, start to finish. So Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, when I was reading the younger books, I was younger. I was in school and I was rating them all 5 stars. So if I were to go back in my Goodreads, I think it would bump it up to my most read book, like most recent. And I didn't want that to happen. So I think all the rest of the books I rated like 5 stars. So it's like I have to rate this one 5 stars. It's nostalgic to me, like growing up. And so I loved this. When I was reading this, I don't know if I talked about this in any other video, but the amount of information that is left off in the movie is ridiculous. It's mind-blowing to me. There was like a whole side plot that happened in the book that never even surfaced in the movie, which I get, like a movie can only be so long, but I just could not believe it. I feel like this was the book so far in the series that really stood out to me in that way, where like the rest of the books I was like, okay, yeah, I remember this happening in the movie, or okay, there's a little bit more information. This had like whole chapters that just didn't happen. So that was really cool because I almost got another half of the movie, if that makes sense. So I had to rate this 5 stars. Again, very chunky. Look at these books put together. At the start of the month, I was like, Brian, why did you do this to me? But I read them. And you know what? I read 2 more books, so let's get into it. Instead of reading The Night Circus or The Spanish Love Deception, which were the other 2 books Brian picked out for me in the month of November, I actually received Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros, and I had to read it. I was seeing so much about it, no spoilers, thank goodness, but I kept seeing everyone post about it and their feelings and like them reading the last chapter, and I was like, I just have to read it. So I read it. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I rated this 4 stars. The reason being is I just felt like some things were missing, some things weren't explained. I feel like the end, even though it like blew my mind and I needed to know what happened, it almost felt rushed to me. Like it kind of just happened without a lot of information or a lot of visual kind of if that makes sense. Like I couldn't visualize a lot of what was happening in this book. And honestly, there was always so much happening. So I enjoyed that aspect. There was always something kind of happening. It wasn't so slow. There was action after action after action, which helped the book felt really fast. But with that being said, because there was so much happening at the end of the book, I was like, where did this book even start off at? Like that's how much information I feel like I was trying to understand, and all of the scenarios they were in, or there was a cliff scene. I was like, what am I trying to imagine? So it just kind of was missing something for me. So I couldn't rate it 5 stars. Even though I loved it, I would recommend it. This is a big series. It's going to be a big series. She's writing the next one, but this one, I'm trying to keep in mind that we got Fourth Wing, and then like so soon after we got Iron Flame. So it was almost like, oh, let me like write it really fast and get it out. Well, there's a break between this book and the 3rd book. I think we get it like middle of next year / like I think towards the end of next year. So I'm hoping, not keeping my expectations high, but I'm hoping that book kind of carries a little bit better. I hope I'm making sense. But 4 stars, I still enjoyed it. I'm so glad that I'm reading this series, and I'm glad that I have series that I'm like, oh, I cannot wait to read the next book, because the worst thing is when you read a series and it's over. So I'm just, keep that out of my mind. We still got books coming. On to the last book that I read in December. I actually read this in the last like 3 days, I think, of November. That was Wreck the Halls by Tessa Bailey. I was not sure how many books I was going to want to read in December, so I was like, I kind of want to get this done so I know that I read it. And I was kind of getting into that, Christmas. It was after Thanksgiving, so I felt like it was the perfect time. It was snowing, everything like that. This book, Now, keep in mind, I read so many fantasy books, right? It was like romantasy, Harry Potter, you know, magical. And then kind of like a fantasy romance kind of thing, like high stake. Then we go into this book. Not very long. It wasn't doing it for me. I don't know what it was. I read one other Tessa Bailey book, and that was It Happened One Summer. Enjoyed it. That one, I just find her books a little cringy to me, and I think it's because of how they're written. Like, they're supposed to be like that, but I'm just like, oh gosh, like, stop. I can't. I get secondhand embarrassment sometimes. And so this book, I had no idea what it was about going into it. No idea. You know, I was like, okay, her books are usually like romance. This is obviously Christmassy. There wasn't really much Christmas at all. It was just not what I was expecting. I would definitely read the back of this book. If it were me, again, I would read the back just so I was a little bit more prepared, because the romance kind of felt like a second kind of thought almost. I don't know. I just don't know. I was reading this in that vlog that I just posted, so you kind of saw my raw reactions as I was reading it. I just think I wasn't enjoying it. The romance was there, but it wasn't kind of what I was wanting, and there was like this whole plot of like the reason why these people are together, and I didn't really enjoy that part either. So I would just feel bad giving it anything below a 3, but I can't give it a 4, because like when I think of like my 4-star reads, this, I'm sorry, but it does not amount to this. And I know they're 2 different genres. I don't base it off that. I just base it off the feelings I had during the book, and it just it didn't meet up to my expectations, I think. And so had to rate this a 3 stars. I'm somewhere in between, but I'm gonna stay at 3 because that's what I put on my Goodreads. Would I recommend this book? Yes. I almost think it was the right book, wrong time kind of scenario, where I just want more romance. I'm just eating it up at the moment, and maybe I just need to put a pause in that so then I don't like read books like this and then not like it. But honestly, this book took way longer than it should have, and whatever. It's done. It's over with. I read it. Was it an okay book? Would I recommend it? Yes. I would just say read the back so you know what you're getting into when you read it. That is the end of my November wrap up. These are all the books I read in November. I know they're not like item wise, it's not a lot. There's like what, 5 books here, but page wise, I'm proud of myself, because I mean, I could split 3 of these books into 3 other books, you know, so I'm proud of myself, and I hope you guys had an amazing November, and I cannot wait for December. I just have a feeling it's gonna be great. I'm gonna do my reading. I'm gonna try to get as many books off my TBR cart as possible, but stay tuned because I have this video going up. I have my December TBR picks coming up. I'm gonna probably do like a Christmas wrapping video. I'm gonna do what I got for Christmas. There's gonna be a lot of ideas, and I hope I execute them well. But I hope you guys have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, night, wherever you are, and subscribe to my channel for more videos. Let me know if you have any recommendations for books. If you had any thoughts on these books, don't do any spoilers because some people might not have read them, but let me know. And I will talk to you in the next video. Bye.